Okay, so I need to tell you something, and honestly, once you hear it, I think it's going to reframe everything you've been feeling this past week. Because if you've been walking around with this low-key sense that something is about to break open, like a decision is sitting right on the tip of your tongue, but you just can't quite get it out, there's a very specific reason for that, and I'm going to break it down for you in this video. Tomorrow, February 24th, we have a first quarter moon in Gemini, and I know that might sound like standard lunar cycle stuff, but here's the thing, this one is different. This isn't just another moon phase you can scroll past. I genuinely believe this is the moment where months of confusion, of waiting, of going back and forth in your head finally starts to resolve into something clear and actionable. And I want to walk you through exactly why. Now, I want to mention something at the start that I'll come back to later in this video, because I think it's the most important piece of this whole thing. There's a planetary event happening just 2 days after this moon that's going to create a fog so thick that decisions you could have made on the 24th suddenly become almost impossible to make clearly. If you've been putting something off, if you've been waiting for the right moment, stay with me, because I really think this is it, and I'll explain exactly what that window is and why it's closing fast. But first, let's talk about what's actually been building this month, because honestly, February has been a lot. Something has been quietly building all month, and you felt it. I don't know about you, but February has felt genuinely intense, like not in an obvious dramatic way, more like this constant undercurrent of pressure that you can't quite name, things shifting, old feelings resurfacing, a restlessness that doesn't go away even when everything on the surface looks fine. And here's what I believe is behind that. Earlier this month we had a solar eclipse in Aquarius, a south node eclipse which basically acts like a cosmic demolition crew. It breaks down what's no longer working. Structures, systems, even relationships that have been running on autopilot, that eclipse started cracking them open. You might have felt it as sudden clarity about something you'd been tolerating, or an unexpected ending, or just this deep, gut-level feeling that something had to change. And then, just a few days ago, on the 20th, Saturn and Neptune met in the sky for the first time in 36 years. I talked about this in my last video, but this alignment is genuinely one of the biggest astrological events of our lifetime. It marks the end of one era and the beginning of another. Saturn is all about structure, discipline, reality. Neptune is dreams, intuition, the dissolving of what we thought was solid. When they come together, it creates this uncomfortable but necessary pressure to stop living in fantasy and start building something real. I think that's why so many of us have been feeling this urgency lately, like something in you already knows the old way of doing things isn't going to cut it anymore. And that brings us to tomorrow. The first quarter moon, this is the moment the pressure becomes a decision. So here's how lunar cycles work, and I promise I'll make this quick because I want to get to the good stuff. The new moon is where a cycle begins. It's the seed. Last week's eclipse in Aquarius was that seed, that fresh start. The first quarter moon, which happens tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning, is the moment the seed pushes up through the soil and hits resistance. First quarter moons are always about action and friction. It's the cosmos basically asking, okay, you set this intention. Are you actually going to do anything about it? And that friction can show up as a literal obstacle, a difficult conversation, or just that moment of reckoning where you realize you have to choose. Tomorrow the moon is in Gemini while the sun is in Pisces, and I want to explain why that specific combination is so interesting, because this is where it gets real. The sun in Pisces right now is operating in this big, expansive, emotionally connected space. Pisces sees the bigger picture. It feels deeply. It's spiritual. It's intuitive. It can be a little dreamy. The energy of Pisces this time of year is almost oceanic, vast, beautiful, but also easy to get lost in, too. The moon in Gemini is the opposite energy. Gemini wants to think, talk, label, understand, decide. It needs information. It needs communication. It's restless and curious, and it processes emotions by analyzing them rather than just sitting inside them. So the tension tomorrow is essentially your heart knows what it wants, Pisces, but your mind needs to say it out loud, Gemini. And that's the gift of this moon. It's the moment those two things finally start working together instead of pulling in opposite directions. Does that resonate? Because I think a lot of us have been feeling that exact tug of war lately. Mercury is about to go retrograde, and this is why you need to act now. Okay, here's the thing I teased at the beginning. This is what I really need you to hear. On February 26th, just 2 days after this quarter moon, Mercury stations retrograde in Pisces, and I know Mercury retrograde gets thrown around a lot, but this one is genuinely significant. Mercury in Pisces is already in a weakened position. It's a sign where logical, clear communication gets blurry and emotional. When it goes retrograde here, that fog gets about 10 times thicker. What does that mean practically? It means that decisions you could make with clarity on February 24th will feel genuinely murky by February 27th. Conversations that feel possible now will start to feel tangled. The voice in your head that knows what it needs to say, it'll start second-guessing itself. I've been through Mercury retrograde in Pisces before, and the thing that gets me every time is how quickly I know what I need to do can become, well, but maybe. So if there's something you've been sitting on, a conversation you need to have, a decision you've been circling around, a move you've been afraid to make, I really believe tomorrow is the window. Don't let the retrograde catch you still waiting. And honestly, that's exactly what this Gemini moon is offering. Clarity, a brief, beautiful window of mental sharpness before the fog rolls in. So let's talk about what the 3 decisions are, because I think at least one of them is going to hit close to home. Decision 1. It's time to say what you actually mean. This is the relational one, and I'm going to be direct about this because I think it's the most urgent. If you are in any kind of uncertain relational situation right now, and I mean any kind, romantic or otherwise, this moon is putting a spotlight on communication, or the lack of it. Gemini energy is fundamentally about words, what we say, how we say it, what we leave unsaid. And right now, with the moon in Gemini squaring the sun in Pisces, there's this really specific dynamic showing up for a lot of people. You feel things deeply, you know what you want, but you're expressing it through implication and energy and hoping the other person just gets it, without you having to actually say the thing. Sound familiar? Because this was a big one for me personally this month. Here's what I think is actually happening. Pisces energy is beautiful, but it can also blur lines in relationships. It creates this atmosphere where everything is left a little open, a little unspoken, a little ambiguous. And that feels safer than being direct. But it also creates a breeding ground for misunderstanding and unmet expectations. The Gemini moon tomorrow is essentially asking you to choose. Are you going to keep operating in subtext, or are you going to use your actual words? And here's why this matters so much right now specifically. The Mercury retrograde starting on the 26th in Pisces is famous for 2 things: returning past figures into your life and creating epic miscommunications where feelings are implied instead of spoken. If you don't establish clarity on the 24th, the retrograde is going to put you right back into the fog of, but I thought you understood, and that's not what I meant. This isn't about being aggressive or forcing conversations that aren't ready. It's about deciding, making a conscious, clear decision in your own mind, where you actually stand, what you actually want, and being willing to say it with your full chest, not just hint at it and hope for the best. I really want to say this to anyone who's been hovering around an undefined situation. You deserve clarity, and more importantly, you are capable of creating it. This moon is giving you the energy to do that. Use it. Decision 2. It's time to stop spreading yourself thin. Okay, this is the financial and career one, but honestly, it goes deeper than money. This is about how you use your energy. There's a Sabian symbol connected to the moon's exact degree tomorrow, and it's one of my favorites for what it represents. It's called workman drilling for oil. And when I sat with that image, something clicked for me. Think about what drilling for oil actually requires. You're not just dipping your hand into a puddle, you're committing to one spot. You're going deep. You're doing the hard work over and over through layers of resistance before you hit the thing that makes it all worth it. And here's the key. The oil doesn't come to you if you keep moving around. You have to stay in one place long enough to break through. I think that image is so perfect for what a lot of people are facing right now. We live in this era of infinite options, a million different ways to make money, a million different paths, a million different versions of the life you could live. And Gemini energy honestly loves that. It loves variety, it loves options, it loves the excitement of new ideas. But the Gemini moon squaring the Pisces sun tomorrow is the moment where you have to decide, are you going to keep entertaining every shiny new option, or are you going to commit your real energy to one direction and go deep? The Saturn-Neptune conjunction that just happened a few days ago is backing this up in a major way. That alignment is all about converting dreams into structured reality. The Saturn side of it isn't interested in, I've been thinking about doing this thing. It wants to know, what are you actually building? What are you actually committing to? Now, I want to be clear, this isn't about locking yourself into something forever. It's about identifying on February 24th specifically what the one thing is that deserves your real, focused, disciplined energy right now. Because the clarity this moon offers, it's not going to last. The retrograde is coming, the fog is coming, and decisions made in fog tend to be either reactive or avoidant. So make this one while you can see. There's also something really beautiful happening in the background here. Venus just formed a gorgeous trine with Jupiter 2 days ago. That's one of the most abundant, lucky aspects in astrology. It's like a cosmic green light for material and emotional growth. But here's the thing I believe about luck. It doesn't show up for scattered energy. It shows up when you've made a decision and you're moving. So decide, then move. That's when the luck kicks in. Decision 3. Is it time to finally change your mind? Okay, this is the one that I think is going to be the hardest for a lot of people to hear, but I think it's also the most important. This third decision is about your mindset, about the stories you're telling yourself, and specifically about whether you're willing to let one of those stories go. Here's what I've noticed with first quarter moons. They always expose the gap between what you planned and what reality is actually showing you. It's the moment where you have to look at something honestly and ask, is this working? Or am I just defending it because I've already invested so much? Gemini's highest expression is cognitive flexibility, the ability to take in new information, change your perspective, and pivot without treating it like a personal failure. That's the medicine available tomorrow. And I think for some people, this moon is going to make it really clear that a belief they've been holding on to about themselves, about what's possible, about a situation in their life, is actually the thing that's keeping them stuck. This could look like a lot of different things. Maybe it's a story about why you can't take a certain step in your career. Maybe it's a belief about what you deserve in a relationship. Maybe it's a creative project or a life direction that made sense a year ago, but the evidence is telling you it needs to evolve. Maybe it's a friendship or a community that you've outgrown but feel guilty admitting. The Gemini moon doesn't judge the old belief. It just asks you to be honest about whether it still serves you, and it offers you the mental agility to make a shift without it feeling like the end of the world. What I've learned is that changing your mind isn't weakness, especially now with Saturn and Neptune completely restructuring what identity even means on a personal and collective level. The people who are going to move forward are the ones who can hold their convictions lightly enough to update them when reality asks them to. Now, am I saying you need to throw out everything you believe by tomorrow morning? No, obviously not, but I do think there's one thing, and if you're honest with yourself, you probably already know what it is, that this moon is illuminating. Something you've been defending out of pride or fear or habit, and the question is whether you're going to let this lunation shift it. That kind of internal pivot, it's actually the foundation for everything else. The communication decision and the financial decision both become a lot easier once you've updated the story you're telling yourself about what's possible. What happens after the 24th and why you need to be anchored? I want to quickly walk you through the next few days because I think it helps you understand why the decisions made tomorrow are so important. February 25th, the very next day, the Sun in Pisces squares something called Black Moon Lilith. This is not a planet. It's a mathematical point that represents the parts of ourselves we suppress, exile, or are afraid to show. When it gets activated like this, all that hidden stuff tends to surface, in yourself and in the people around you. You might encounter someone testing the boundaries you just set. You might feel an unexpected wave of doubt or emotion about a decision you just made. This isn't a sign you were wrong, it's just the shadow putting up a fight before it releases. Then the 26th, Mercury goes retrograde, and suddenly everything that was clear feels like it's behind frosted glass. Then, February 27th, Mars squares Uranus. This is a volatile, electric, combustive aspect. Think, sudden disruptions, unexpected shifts, the thing you thought was stable suddenly moving fast in a new direction. For some people, this will feel chaotic. For others, it will feel like a breakthrough, like something that had been stuck suddenly gets unstuck. Either way, it's intense, and it's a lot easier to navigate if you're already anchored in a clear decision rather than still sitting in indecision when it hits. And then, still on February 27th, the Sun conjuncts the North Node in Pisces. This is the karmic one. The North Node represents your evolutionary direction, where you're meant to be growing. When the Sun lights it up, it's like the universe is putting a spotlight on your path forward. It's a moment of, this is the direction, but that direction only becomes clear if you've been honest with yourself in the days before it. The point is, the decisions you crystallize on February 24th are going to act as an anchor for all of this. They're the thing you come back to when the retrograde makes you question yourself. They're the thing that keeps you from getting swept up in the Mars-Uranus chaos. They're the foundation. Here's what I think you should actually do tomorrow. So let's make this practical, because I know sometimes these videos can feel like a lot of big ideas with nowhere to land. Tomorrow, I genuinely think you should carve out even just 15 or 20 minutes to sit with 3 questions, not to journal an essay, not to have all the answers, just to be honest with yourself about where you actually stand. Question 1. Is there a conversation I've been having in my head that I haven't had out loud? What would it actually sound like if I said it directly? Question 2. What is the one area of my life where I've been spreading myself too thin? What would it look like to genuinely commit, not just say I'm committing, but actually go all in on one direction? Question 3. What's a belief or a story I'm still carrying that the evidence is telling me needs updating, and am I willing to let it? You don't have to have the perfect answer. The Gemini energy of this moon is not asking for perfection. It's asking for honesty and willingness to communicate and move. Even a decision in the right direction, made imperfectly, is infinitely more powerful than the perfectly worded decision you've been postponing. And here's what I really believe about this particular window. It's one of those moments where the clarity you're looking for isn't somewhere out there in the future. It's already in you. It's been trying to surface. This moon is just giving you the conditions to finally hear it. A final thought before I let you go. I've been thinking a lot this month about what it means to actually trust yourself, because I think that's really what all 3 of these decisions come down to. Trusting yourself enough to say the thing. Trusting yourself enough to commit to one direction. Trusting yourself enough to change your mind when it needs changing. And I think the reason those things feel so hard sometimes is that we've been waiting for external confirmation, waiting for the other person to give us permission to have the conversation, waiting for a guarantee before we commit, waiting for someone else to validate the new direction before we pivot. The Saturn-Neptune energy that's been building all month is fundamentally about ending that wait, not because the universe is harsh, but because you're capable. You always were. And the Gemini moon tomorrow is one of those rare moments where your mind and your intuition are lined up in a way that makes the answers genuinely accessible. Don't let the retrograde fog take that from you before you use it. Whatever's been living in the back of your mind, in that quiet space where you already know the truth, I think it's time to bring it forward. All right, if you're still here, thank you, genuinely. I know this was a lot and I appreciate you staying with me through all of it. If any of this resonated, if you're going into tomorrow feeling like something clicked, I'd really love to hear about it in the comments. What's the decision that's been waiting for you? What clarity have you been craving? Drop it below. I read every comment, and I love hearing what you're all going through. And if you want to keep up with these kind of deep dives as we move through what I think is going to be a really significant stretch of astrology, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a lot coming in March that I want to walk through with you. Take care of yourself tonight, and I'll see you in the next one.